Hello and welcome to the second episode of the Latics Lowdown. Again, we will get the elephant out of the room early doors. We're a day late. This is a tragic start to the Latics Lowdown. Obviously, Wednesday 7 p.m. I promise. One day it'll happen. It will. I swear. But we've actually got quite a lot to get through today. I'm not sure how long this episode will be. I'd imagine potentially shorter than last week, but I don't know because we've got a lot. So we've got a Tom Watson contract. That's happened since we last spoke. We've got a recruitment for an analyst for the first team, which I'm going to touch on because it's ever so slightly concerning to me, but we'll get into that as the show goes on. We've got two new transfer rumours as well as an update on an existing transfer rumour that I brought to you last week in Ronan Hale. And we've got, after years, absolute years, finally, potentially, pre-season in another country. I will explain later on if you haven't already seen what could be going on there. We've also got some managerial movement in and around the league, and we've finally got the confirmed lineup for the league as well, which I've got a nice little map to bring us later on. Spoiler alert, it's lovely and northern for those away games that I know that we all yearn for. We've also got a striker potentially on the move out of the championship that could, come our way, I'm hoping. And an ex-manager joining Manchester City, potentially. I don't know. I don't know what's going on with this football club at the moment, but we will get into all of that as today's show goes on. First off, we're going to start with some contract news. We've got Tom Watson. He has signed a new 3-year contract at the club. I'm over the moon. We spoke about it last week about Harry McHugh, Tom Watson, and Callum McManaman all being in contract negotiations with the club. Tom Watson's the first of the three to sign his new deal. Admittedly, I thought it would be McManaman potentially that goes first. If anything, I thought Watson may be the one that drags on the most, but it hasn't. Crucially, it has not. I think this is great news. Obviously, a lot of us expect Sam Tickle to be at least rumoured to be leaving the club all throughout the summer transfer window. And so having young Tom Watson, his backup and potentially his protege tied down to a contract already is brilliant news. Ryan Lowe said, although he's still at the start of his career, Tom's been at the club a long time and knows what it means to be a Wigan Athletic player. He's great around the camp, and I've liked what I've seen from him so far. If he keeps working hard, I expect him to have a bright future with us. And I think, obviously, Ryan Lowe's opinion at the end of the day is probably what matters most to Tom Watson. I can see a world in which next year he could take Sam Tickle's spot should Tickle leave, but I would more lean on potentially loaning in a goalkeeper if that was to happen, or bringing in a more experienced head with the view for Watson to potentially step into the team over the next couple of seasons. Watson himself said that it's great to know that I have the trust of the gaffer, Gregor, and everyone at the club. I had a few opportunities last season in the Cup, and I hope to make more appearances and keep improving as the seasons go on. So I think Watson probably expects to be number 2 next year, potentially. Although there is a gap there that could be stepped into. Obviously, we are speaking as if Sam Tickle has already left the club. He hasn't, but it would take almighty level of convincing from Ryan Lowe, in my opinion, to sort of convince Tickle that the right thing for him to do at the moment isn't to take that next step into the Championship. I think he has proven on many occasions that he is the best shot stopper in the league. I think, in my opinion, his long distribution may need some sort of some adjusting, but in terms of shot stopping, he's by far and away the best goalkeeper in this league. To be honest, he's probably one of the top half, at the very minimum, in my opinion, in the league above. So to keep that in this league, especially if we get offers of 3-4+ million, then it would be potentially even silly from our point of view to keep hold of him, to not have that money to recruit into other areas of the squad. Of course, like a goalkeeper and a good goalkeeper is crucial for a title-winning team, but we won the league title with Ben Amos in goal, and that's not a slight on Ben Amos. It's more, at the time, he would have been 31 years old. His career at that point had been known to be a bit of a journeyman as a number 2 in the Championship, and a number 1 in like mid-table League One teams. And of course, now I believe he's at Port Vale. So for him to be a league-winning goalkeeper, obviously, if you've got a back line in front of you that is as imperious as ours, being one of the best defensive teams in the league, sort of having a 3-4 million worth goalkeeper is it could be put up for debate that isn't something that you should really be doing. I just want to bring this in as well. So we've had a bit of a job application go out there that, for me, I'm not sure if it concerns me or not. So it's for a first team recruitment analysis to basically look at clips of players that could be coming into the club and sort of give their opinions and stuff. Should that not already be in place? Would be my point. Now, okay, fair enough. I don't know the like nuances and the situation and the context. Someone could have just left the club. They could just be wanting to add to an already existing team. But that I am keeping my eye on that because you would have thought things like that element of the house would be in order coming into the season. So it's something not necessarily number one concern. Like I said, someone could have just left the club for getting another opportunity. They could just be adding to an already existing team. But it's something to keep an eye on, in my opinion. If I start seeing multiple job applications of that sort of description go up, I'm starting to be a little bit concerned. But I think it's not something to lose our minds over. I mean, to be honest, even if we didn't have a team, I'd trust Ryan Lowe's judgment on players as it is. But it's always nice to sort of have in-house staff being able to work on that and sort of already having those teams in place. To be honest, because I think everyone would agree that last season's summer recruitment left a lot to be desired at the very least. To say, I mean, it shows in January really how much that we did in terms of even sending players back off of loan spells. People like Joe Hugel, Calvin Ramsey, that last summer's recruitment not necessarily up to scratch. It didn't particularly put Sean Maloney with the best situation to be in terms of a squad to really go and compete for those playoff places that we were told is what we were going to be competing for. Unfortunately, that isn't how it turned out. But onwards and upwards on the theme of recruitment, we have got 2 new transfer rumours that have come out since I last spoke to you, and they are as follows. We have got, that's Tom Watson. Tom Watson isn't joining the club. He's extending his stay here. There we go. There we have it. So we have got Sam Dolby. Now, this for me would be an absolute dream deal. Sam Dolby is a striker out of Wrexham. He's just left there on a free. He was offered a contract by Wrexham. He turned it down. I think when you look at Wrexham, the trajectory that they're on, letting go of people like Paul Mullen, you can see why Dolby maybe saw his future elsewhere. They've got countless strikers at that football club, and I don't doubt they'll bring in more. I think they'll try and sort of break the neck to sign Jamie Vardy, to be honest. And Wrexham are on an upward trajectory. So Dolby's taken his leave. He's decided he's off and that he's seen enough of his time at Wrexham. He didn't even play for Wrexham last year, though. Last year, he was in the Scottish League for Dundee United. 17 goals and assists, 15 being goals, 2 assists. He's 6'3", which, if you were here last week, if you weren't, go back and watch last week's episode after this one. But we've been linked to a couple of strikers, all of which seem to fill a certain sort of mould in terms of being strikers that are 6 foot or just below, with pace and legs to go in behind, run channels, and be a nuisance from that point of view. We spoke about Niall Ennis, we spoke about Paul Mullin, spoke about Ronan Hale. Sam Dolby's very different. He can still run the channels at 25 years old. Like, he's got the legs to do it. Absolutely. But 6'3" offers a very different sort of profile, a very different way of playing than those 3 strikers that we mentioned earlier. Obviously, over the past few years, we've had strikers that do fit that mould. We've had Josh McGuinness, Charlie White, but they have been sort of pushing towards the latter stages of the career. And so being a big man is sort of the thing, if that makes sense. So they'll compete in the air, they'll be physical, they'll hold the ball up well, but they're not going to do the dirty work and run the channels. In fairness, Josh McGuinness did try, but you can only do it so much when you're at that stage of your career. Also, you can only do that so much when you're playing in a 4-3-3 and you are the lone striker and suddenly you've got 2 channels that you have to constantly run at 33 years old. I think that McGuinness was when he left us. It's a hard task to do for anybody, to be honest. So Sam Dolby, though, very different. He can do that at 25. He's got the pace. He's got the legs to run channels. And again, we'll be playing a different system. We're playing 2 up front, so realistically, he'll probably only have 1 channel to run. Really, offers a very good box presence. Very good sort of winning balls down into the crosses that come into the box. He can win those down for the second striker, or even just get a shot on goal himself. High competition for his signature, though. Unfortunately, I don't think, based off of what I've read from Football League World and other various people that have been linking us to Dolby, It doesn't seem as though we are at the front of the queue for this one. It seems as though he could be off to potentially even Bolton. Paul Kendrick wrote an article in the week saying that another Lancashire club or another Northwest club, forgive me, I can't remember the exact wording, are the front runners for his signature. He did mention that it wasn't Blackpool because Blackpool are also in for him, but it seems as though, without it being said necessarily outright, Bolton could be the destination for Dolby. I read earlier today that Bolton have joined the race, and if there are a Lancashire club that isn't us, that isn't Blackpool, that are ahead of us in that race for his signature, you would sort of like to put two and two together and unfortunately assume that it is the lot down the road that could be bringing in Sam Dolby this summer. But I thought I would bring it here just in case. We've seen stranger things happen. I imagine, as I said last week, us and Bolton will share a lot of summer transfer targets due to the sort of the nature of both managers, Schumacher and Ryan Lowe, obviously having worked with each other previously, played fairly similar systems. They'll look for certain things in players that they probably share similar qualities. But we can hope. We can hope. I really do hope that this comes off. But if he ends up down the road, what can you do? What can you do? We'll play a two-striker system. We're looking at three strikers this summer, bringing in. If Sam Dolby's one of them, great. If he's not, we'll move on. We've got other targets. We've got Niall Ennis. We've spoke about Paul Mullin last week. Ronan Hale as well. We'll bring you an update on him in a moment. But we'll have other targets. I'm sure more names will be added to the list as time goes on. I think as well, it's important to know that everything that you read about us being linked to strikers don't necessarily take for gospel until you see it in it a few times, I would say, because we're quite publicly after a number of strikers this summer. And with us being sort of notoriously big in this league for competing for titles, for playoffs at the least, and with Ryan Lowe being the manager, a lot of agents would be silly to not use our name to push prices for their player and for themselves up, really. Like I said, we're publicly after three strikers. So if you're a striker that is lingering around this level in the league, to not use Wigan as a bit of a pawn to drive prices up, yeah, you'd be silly not to do that. But that is Sam Dolby again. At the moment, as we stand, it's not looking like he could be on his way to the break. It looks like he could be on his way to the tough sheet, but we can hold out hope. It's a transfer, and I thought that I'd bring you anyway. Anyway, next up we have Paul Valentin. Now this one, this gets me a little bit giddy, right? I'm a bit excited about this one. Obviously, formerly of Sheffield Wednesday, he's left on a free. So that, again, this would be another free transfer from the Championship, dropping down into League One. Now I looked at Paul Valentin because before Sheffield Wednesday, I wasn't familiar with him. He spent time at Valencia B, and a lot of his career has been sort of throughout the lower leagues of Spain until he came to England with Sheffield Wednesday. But there is serious potential here. So 28 years old, perfect, sort of peak of his career. You don't have no worries with sort of inexperience. You've got no worries really with his legs going or anything like that. He's not quite there yet. But I thought, right, I don't know a lot about this player. I'll have a look. I'll have a search. I'll go into his stats from last season. We'll see where he's at. And what I found was brilliant. I've got to say, it was brilliant. And I'm really surprised that Sheffield are letting him go on a free. So his overall numbers in general, so goals, assists, sort of those sort of things, that surface level stuff, are average at best. So he plays right wing back. I should probably lead with that as well. But a lot of his numbers are sort of middle of the road, Championship wing back. Nothing outstanding, nothing that jumps out at you and goes, right, well, this guy is a serious player. But obviously, that's in the Championship. So being a middle of the road Championship right wing back is no snub for a League One side that finished 15th like we did. Now, then I got down to his sort of dribbling and on the ball statistics. And as it says here, the 98th percentile for progressive carries when compared to wingbacks and fullbacks in the Championship last year. Now, I said this last week, I'll say it again. This will be a point where a lot of you at home either switch off or just mentally go, oh, stats, percentages, progressive carries, a load of waffle. But stick with me here. What this basically means is that out of the entire championship for any wingback and fullback, he was in the top 2% for carrying the ball into into sort of the opposition half, into the final third. That is ridiculous for two reasons. One, Sheffield Wednesday, not a team that were necessarily in and around the top six, not a team that were necessarily eyeing promotion. Don't get me wrong, they're a decent team. Danny Roll's doing a great job there. That's why he's been linked with so many other clubs, but not not a big player in the championship. These are the numbers that you would expect from somebody like a Harrison Burrows, from a Bogle at Leeds, a Junior Firpo, I'm sure is high on these statistics. But for Paul Valentin to be in and amongst this is outrageous. Then you add that to the fact that he'll be playing a division below in a Ryan Lowe system, which promotes sort of really attacking wing backs and borderline wingers. I mean, we've seen Owen Dale and Johnny Smith play the back end of this year, albeit kind of hands kind of forced there due to our lack of wing backs at the club. But Ryan Lowe really wants these wing backs to get forward. And so being in the top 2% for progressive carries in the championship and then dropping down a division, his on the ball statistics pretty much say, look, I'm going to be a serious, serious problem in this league for opposition defenses. He's also got decent crossing statistics. I've not got them down here at the minute, unfortunately, but he does have very decent level of delivery. Successful take-ons in the top 29% is really, really good, again, for a wing-back out of Sheffield Wednesday. Progressive passes being in the top 10%, that is great as well, because obviously that it doesn't say it there, but that means successful progressive passes, which means he often finds people forwards. And something that we've lacked this year really is players that sort of get forward and break lines and just take somebody on or knock a really good ball forward to just take people out of a game. And he really has that sort of in him, which is brilliant, really. I mean, who wouldn't want a wing back that in the championship is brilliant at driving the ball forward, both through passing and through dribbling? So Paul Valentin gets me really, really excited. I like the idea of him being our next right wing back. I've only seen it in the early stages of last week, admittedly. And so maybe not the most reliable. If we're going off of last week's system where I rate things out of 10 on likelihood, I'd probably right now stick it at like a 4. But the idea that we are just linked to him in general is great. I would love someone of that mold, even if it isn't necessarily Valentin himself. I'd love someone of that mold, a really attacking wing back. I've got some in the bank. Don't worry, we'll be bringing episodes in the future of me just sitting here and telling you X amount of players that we should sign and why. And there are many that fit the mold of Paul Valentin, whether that be from League One or even from League Two sometimes. But to have one dropping down from the Championship to League One would be brilliant. Anyway, that is our transfer news for the day. That is, unfortunately, we've only been linked to 2 players. Get the checkbook out. That's what I say. But what else have we got here? We've got pre-season abroad. Pre-season abroad. Oh my years! I have seen this on the Twitter over every summer. As soon as the last whistle has gone on the last day of the season, it's like, right, now can we go to Spain and play, I don't know, Bilbao? And we never have. But it looks as though we could be finally getting pre-season in another country. Now, the reason I say this is about 20 minutes. So thank you, Latics, as per usual, throwing spanners in all kinds of works. About 20 minutes before I hit the live button, a little sort of interview between Ryan Lowe and some kids as part of the sort of junior media team at Wigan dropped. And I thought, a lot of the time, not much comes out of them that is necessarily of use to fans who are looking for like hardcore information on really important things, until right at the end of this interview, one of the lads gets asked to ask Ryan Lowe about pre-season and where pre-season is, and just as he's about to open his mouth and tell them, Latics cut the video off. Why? Why? But it said that shortly we will be told where pre-season is. Now, I don't think we would be making such a fuss about where pre-season is if it was in Bootle playing Chorley and Chesterfield at best. So I would say watch that space and hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. I would say watch that space and I would say hopefully we will even if we still play Chorley, can we at least do it in Spain? Now, we've got here had a supposed inside source tell me Benidorm, we'll see. Now, I don't know how many people watching this will have been to Benidorm. I hope it's not. Purely because if we do pre-season in Benidorm, I think we'll be coming over back to England for the season with more sore heads than tired legs than anything else. So, I mean, it would be abroad. It'd be a sunny country to play some pre-season games in. I know Benidorm isn't a country before someone puts that, but we would be going to a sunny gaff, playing some games, but probably coming back with some sore heads. So maybe leave Benidorm until after the season's done, is all I'm saying on that. But what else have we got today? We've got some managerial news from around the league. Now, I know this isn't exactly Latics sort of related directly, but indirectly it really is. So I've got here some interesting news from around the grounds, if you will, from other teams in the division. So just before I get into some of this, the reason I'm showing this is because obviously the two teams in question here are Plymouth and Huddersfield, who we would like to think we will be competing with, sort of in the upper echelons of the league. If you were to bet early doors, you would assume Plymouth will be up there, having just dropped out of the Championship. You would assume that Huddersfield would be trying to push on from last year and really get into the sort of top six this year, and you would hope that we are as well, obviously. So we've got managerial movement at both of those clubs, and I will bring those to you now. So at Plymouth, we have got Miron Muslik, who really sort of galvanised them towards the back end of last season, to be honest, in the Championship. He really got them playing some good football, got them fighting, and they very nearly clawed themselves out of the relegation zone. He has been given permission to speak to a Bundesliga 2 side, which is believed to be Schalke, who have paid them after expressing it to. You will you lost me for a minute there, but I would imagine that that will likely progress to Muslik leaving the club, and Plymouth then needing to go and find themselves a new manager. So we'll obviously keep you updated on that as that sort of progresses. Again, we're not a Plymouth podcast, but it is important. They are a team that will be up and around us in the league, you would hope, next year. So it'll be interesting to see who they go for. Obviously, Plymouth have gone through a weird sort of time with their managers in the last couple of seasons, having that weird stint with Rooney and now Muslik from another country. It'll be interesting to see whether they go for a overperforming manager in the English divisions or whether they go for another manager from abroad. Frustratingly for them, as they've wrote in that tweet, they did just start to really back Muslik with recruitment, whether that's players, whether that's staff and finances they'd got in order to sort of provide Muslik. So bit annoying for them, really. But what can you do? What can you do? As long as they don't come back in to try and take Ryan Lowe back, which I'm sure that they won't. I don't particularly mind, but we'll see who Plymouth seem to go for in time. But that is Plymouth Argyle looking for a new manager after Muslik seemingly must be off to Schalke. Next up, we've got Huddersfield, who have appointed Grant, who I believe finished his career at Manchester United, which is interesting. But first managerial role, I believe he was an assistant coach in his previous role, so it'll be interesting to see how he gets on at Huddersfield in League One. It's a risk. I would say, going for a manager who is stepping into his first role as a head coach is always a risk, really. We've done it with someone who I will mention later in the show, but we've done it and it hasn't gone well. Teams have done it and it has gone really well. Obviously, Ipswich with Kieran McKenna, he's took them all the way to the Premier League. So it's a complete gamble. Obviously, I'm sure Huddersfield have done the background research. I'm sure they've not just employed him for the sake of it. It would be a pretty expensive mistake to just do that as a League One club. So I'm sure they've done the background research. I'm sure they're impressed in interviews, but an interesting one to say the least. So we'll keep an eye on Huddersfield for next season. Like I said, I expect them to be in and around the top 6 personally, but you never know. Should this appointment go wrong for them, then they could be mid-table by Christmas and needing to search for a new manager. So you know, you never know. What else have we got today? Ooh, okay. What do we want first? Do we want a transfer rumor, or do we want a manager of Wigan's joining Man City? I think I'll finish on that one. We'll go with the. Well, it's not really a transfer rumor. I've kind of I've sold you a lie there, but it's one that I would like to be a transfer rumor that is having movement made, and that is Nathan Lowe of Stoke City. I don't know what has gone wrong at Stoke for Nathan Lowe. I don't know if anything has gone wrong. I don't know if it's just that Mark Robins doesn't particularly fancy the lad, but he seems like he could be on the move again. Those who are familiar with League Two, those who are familiar with the EFL, those who are familiar with Stoke will know about this lad. He lit League Two on fire last year when he dropped down to Walsall in the first 6 months. I think he still finished within the top 10 scorers in the league, despite only spending half of the season there. And he was exceptional. He's a 19-year-old, I believe, 18-year-old striker out of the Stoke Academy. Like I said, did really well at Walsall. And apparently he has been told that he can leave on loan to the division above League One this season. Now, when Stoke brought him back in January, he didn't go on to play much for them, but he did score a couple of goals in Mark Robbins' side. And so I am a little bit surprised that they are allowing him to leave. He's 6'4", which big lad for such a young age. Like I said about Dolby, he's a little bit different. I'd say that he's more mobile than Sam Dolby. He's not necessarily just because I think he even spoke about this. He did a really good stint on Sky for the playoff semi-finals at Walsall's ground. They got him in as a pundit, interestingly, and he spoke really well. To be fair, I thought it was really, really strange but interesting to see an 18-year-old player who's really, really at the start of his career doing punditry. But he did really well, and I think he said in that he doesn't see himself as a target man, despite being 6'4", which I think a lot of people fall into. I think we've done it before with strikers, where just because they are a certain build, a certain height, we sort of pigeonhole them into being something that they're necessarily not. I think we did it with Charlie Kelman, if I'm honest, where we pigeonholed him into being this sort of small, agile player who should get him behind, and we just started smashing balls long to him, and because we didn't really have anyone who could pull off those passes, they ended up going to his head. And at like 5'9", which Charlie Kelman is, that doesn't bode very well in League One against big physical defenders. And then you see this season what Charlie Kelman has done, being the top scorer in the league, and you wonder why we played him that way. So with Nathan Lowe, a similar sort of thing. As much as he is 6'4", as much as he is a sort of big lad, don't start lobbing balls to his head because it won't work. Walsall played really good football in the first half of the year, and he was really good at getting in on those chances that they created for him and finishing them off. But he has been told, coming back full circle, that he can go to League One next year. Now, I'll say it already, unless something crazy happens and some high-profile player decides that he's taking the drop to League One, Nathan Lowe will be the most contested signature next season. If he, with this being made public that he can drop down to League One, I can almost guarantee every single League One team will be on the phone to Stoke today, if not tomorrow, asking what the conditions of this deal are, how they can get it done. They'll be on the phone to Lowe himself trying to sell them the project. Every club will be doing it. And rightfully so, because, like I said, 6 months in League Two, he was outrageous. And I think personally, the drop from the Championship to League One is a big gap. The drop from League One to League Two is very bridgeable. And so, with him smashing in so many goals in League Two, okay, the step up to the Championship didn't necessarily work for him. We've seen it again with the likes of Macaulay Langstaff, who we spoke about last week, going from Notts County to Millwall. He can't quite make that step up. Again, he's only 18, which is why they're probably not letting him go with him permanently. So, dropping back down into League One, the gap between League Two and League One for me isn't that big. And so, he would undoubtedly fire goals in, and I would love him at Wigan, to be honest. So, yeah, if he's going, if we've not already, which, like I said, we better have done, and I don't doubt that we probably have, get on the phone to Mark Robbins, get on the phone to Stoke City, try and get this deal done. It'll probably be an expensive loan deal by League One standards, but I don't mind, honestly, because he will score so many goals in this league. Again, if we put him up front in a Ryan Lowe system with two up front, giving him somebody to play off of as well, maybe sort of a more experienced player, but not necessarily a target man. Give him a Niall Ennis to play off of, and that is some serious amounts of goals that you could score in this division. Again, Niall Ennis, another Stoke player, so that's two now. So if Stoke City aren't blocking Wigan's number by the end of this transfer window because we've called them that many times over strikers, then I will be disappointed because there are two there for the taking that are of excellent League One standard, in my opinion. Obviously, Nathan Lowe, not as proven in League One as Niall Ennis, maybe, but I don't think some players need to prove it until they land, and then you think, yeah, okay, you're good to go. You're more than good to go. But that's Nathan Lowe done for the day. I will obviously, if things happen, if people keep getting linked to Nathan Lowe, if we get linked to Nathan Lowe, most importantly, then I'll bring that to you as soon as I can. Like I said, Wednesdays 7 p.m. These lives will be every week, unless I say otherwise on Twitter, which I have done twice in 2 weeks now. Apologies, but Wednesdays 7 p.m. Keep updated on the Twitter, Latics_live. Unfortunately, I can't change it to Lowdown just yet, but Latics_live on Twitter, or follow me on my personal account, Corey Bissell _16, I believe that one is. But another bit of this. I don't know what this is. Spice. We'll go with spice. We've got the official, finally, League One. Oh, I'm moving about the screen. There we go, that'll do. We have got the map. The dreaded map, or the beautiful map, depending on the year. This year, this is a beautiful map. This is a wonderful map for you away day goers. This map is amazing. Look at all that northernness. Just take it in for. I'll sit back for a minute. Just look at it. That is amazing. We've got Bolton, obviously, Derby Day. We've got Blackpool. We've got Stockport. We've got Huddersfield. We've got Bradford. We've got Barnsley. We've got Rotherham. We've got Doncaster. Now, if you're a Premier League fan watching this, you're probably laughing at me for getting so giddy over Doncaster, Rotherham, and Bradford. But it's so northern. It's lovely. It's beautiful. Even Burton, Port Vale, Mansfield, Lincoln City. There's Plymouth and Exeter. But it's fine. I don't mind making those treks. But when 90% of the year, it's down the road. It's beautiful. Look at that. Bolton, Blackpool, Stockport, Huddersfield. I could go again and again and again saying the same names, but it's wonderful. Obviously, well done to Wimbledon. Funnily enough, Wimbledon, the only team in the playoffs, both Championship, League One and League Two this year, that didn't play in red. So there's a stat for you. Maybe if you don't play in red, you win. Although the other 5 teams were in red, and obviously with them still won. But that is a lovely Northern League for me. A lovely Northern League. Forget the geography for a minute. I'm gonna spit off some thoughts of mine about some of the teams in this league going into next year. It's very early. The transfer window hasn't gone anywhere really yet. There's some teams that have made some free transfers, but it's way too early to start predicting league tables. I will do that when the time comes, and then we can laugh at me this time next year. But I'm just going to give some early thoughts on some big players in this league for me. Blackpool, I expect to be up there, especially if they get Niall Ennis, in which case we'll all cry. Bolton, you've got to say, as much as we probably don't want to, probably going to be up there. You'd expect Steven Schumacher to make big changes over the summer, and with that is a risk. Obviously, he's been very public about not liking significant portions of the playing squad over at Bolton. So changing a lot of that, you would imagine it'll go one of two ways. They'll either crash and Schumacher won't be there by Christmas and they'll be mid-table again, or they'll be up there. And I would lean towards the latter. Obviously, Bolton, as much as we don't want to say it, are a sizable club for this division. So they will be able to attract players that other clubs necessarily won't. And on that, Bradford. Bradford City worry me. I've got to be honest. Now, when I look at the division year on year, I don't necessarily look at the championship teams coming down to worry me. Because those who come down, I relatively 9 times out of 10 expect to be up there. And so in my head, every year, there is sort of an expected top 6. Now, that will change as the season goes on. Obviously, last year, I didn't necessarily think Wycombe would be in there. I didn't necessarily think Leyton Orient would be in there. So things do change, and teams do drop off that you wouldn't expect, and teams do well that you wouldn't expect. But I expect a 6 that are nailed on, roughly, every year. And the 3 that come down from the Championship, I relatively, most times, expect to be in that 6. The ones that worry me are the ones that come up from League 2. Not all the time, because I've got to admit, Wimbledon don't necessarily terrify me. Oh God, I've just realised what I'm doing here. This is a terrible, terrible mistake, because when Wimbledon get promoted next season, I'm gonna get clipped up. But hey, well, I've started now, so I'll finish. Wimbledon don't necessarily worry me. Port Vale, I'm confident in this one actually. Port Vale at best will survive. Maybe finish mid-table. Sorry, Port Vale. But if you get promoted, I'll eat this hat live. But Bradford City, oh, they're a massive club, aren't they? They're a massive club. And they've got momentum now. And they've got, I mean, Max Power's a great signing for this level for Bradford. They worry me. They do worry me. They're a huge club. Huge, huge, huge club. And so, as I said previously with Bolton, the attraction that players could get to go there in this division, I'm not sure about Bradford's financial strength, but as a club, they are an attractive prospect. And so, I mean, we've seen it with Max Power already. They can attract top level players for this league. And so, they are one I wouldn't, when I look at the league, like I said, I look at the teams coming up and they could cause a stir in and around the top 6 next year. So it is a worry. Doncaster, again, mid-table at best. I mean, to be fair, Doncaster have had previous at doing really well in League One. They've also had previous at getting relegated. So I don't really know. But I don't fear them until a ball's kicked. When a ball's kicked, maybe I'll start fearing them. But until then, they're not necessarily on my radar in terms of the top 6. Rotherham, you would expect to do better. Huddersfield, you would expect to do significantly better. Stockport, it's another example of a League 2 team coming up and doing really well. I think that shows Stockport and Wrexham, really. Both of them last year. One of them finished in the playoffs. The other one would have won the league if it weren't for Birmingham bankrolling themselves, to be honest. But I mean, we've done it, so we can't really complain. Although £30 million spent is ridiculous. But yeah, Bradford for me. just to round off this segment, are a worry. I do fear that they could really mix things up in and around the top of this division come May. Really, they could easily be in the playoffs. I'll say that already. That when I do my preseason predictions, when the transfer window is closed, or towards the back end of the transfer window, Bradford, I'm already predicting, if I had to guess now already, will probably be in my top 10. So if they continue with signing players of Max Power's quality, they're going to be really in my top 10. Last season, I predicted Stockport to finish 5th. I'm not sure where they actually finished in the end. It may well have been 5th. So no pressure, Corey, but I'm usually good at these predictions. So, yeah, Bradford are a problem. They could also be used, I'll just round this off by saying they could also be used to offload players. So I've already spoken about my sort of Johnny Smith debacle, where I'm not sure he necessarily suits the system. It's not that he's a bad player. Please don't come for my head already. But Bradford could be used as sort of a boat to push your deadwood or your players that don't suit your systems onto. Although, having said that, Johnny Smith is a really good player, so maybe don't push him to Bradford because that could cause problems later down the line. But to round off today, our last bit of news, our last topic of discussion for the day, and I'm not going to take particularly long on it because it doesn't necessarily involve us. It's just quite funny, so I thought I'd bring it into today's show. Let's just read this for a minute. I'll give you a second. Yes, you've read that right. No, you're not in dreamland. Kolo Touré linked to Manchester City. Now, I'll just quickly give my thoughts on the two names. The Pep Linders has nothing to do with Wigan, but in general, if you know about Pep Linders, he was Jurgen Klopp's assistant. If Guardiola goes and appoints him, that's arguably a masterstroke because he'll know a lot about the in and outs of Liverpool. That's enough on that. Kolo Touré. I appreciate that he's worked in big clubs' academies before. I appreciate that he was a good player. However, I also appreciate that our circumstances and Man City's circumstances are on two completely opposite ends of the spectrum. But is this a joke? Is Guardiola laughing at me behind that? I know Guardiola watches this. I know Guardiola watches the Latics Lowdown. Is he laughing behind his screen there? Because Kolo Touré being linked to join Manchester City's backroom staff. Please do it. Just do it. For the laugh, just do it. I'm not sure 3-4-0 defeats in a row in the Championship quite warrant that move. Hot take. Who would have thought? I'm not sure getting drummed 4-0 3 games in a row should get you to Manchester City. I don't know if you would agree with that. I would imagine that you do. But I would find it quite funny if Kolo Touré was to somehow, some way, wangle his way back, apologies, into Manchester City. And that is where we are going to end today's episode. Kolo Touré. Thank you for watching this week's episode of the Latics Lowdown. I will be back next week at Wednesday, 7 p.m. I promise, for next week. Thank you for watching. If you could like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, all of that great stuff, that would be greatly appreciated. And yeah, thank you for watching the Latics Lowdown. Goodbye for now.